Good day to all, and welcome to Music Monday. I am your host Nicholas Thompson, and here you will find fabulous recommendations for all your musical taste. I will be reviewing and talking about the multiple categories of music. This will be music that I've listened to from the previous week, such as the ever-evolving memorable tunes of Wappin, the ever-growing popularity of K-pop, and the king of the hill that is rock and roll, and etc. I will be talking about the emotional passions and the talent that has went behind these fine pieces of media work, and talking about my personal thoughts of what I've listened to and what I've enjoyed from the previous weeks. So let's get started with my first recommendation. My first recommendation is a personal favourite of mine, and that is Stepping Out by Tony Bennett from 1993. If the name Tony Bennett rings a bell to you, well, it might be that he's done some albums and work with the music icon Lady Gaga. She's always wanted to work with Bennett, so she took any opportunity to and do so. And the music that I've heard from they two is great. But let's get back to Stepping Out. This album takes us back to a forgotten time in history, and that is the swing and jazz time of the 1950s. And that's when Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, mostly the Rat Pack duo, started making popularity by singing swing and jazz songs such as Irresponsible, Come Fly With Me. And this takes you back to this era of time, with it collaborating and having some elements of pop and jazz and modern jazz also. Also, this represents a comeback for Bennett, since his previous albums from the time did not do so well with the public eye and his fan base. Also, what I think adds to the specialness to this album is the great piano solos which are played by Ralph Simmons. Him and Bennett doing the lead vocals is a duet due to make masterpieces. And also, this album represents a tribute to a tap dance icon, since tap dance is some type of theme throughout this album of the late Fred Astaire, as you can hear some of Fred Astaire's songs that he performed in his films also on this album. Some of my personal favourite songs from this album is That's Entertainment, They All Laughed At, Shine On My Shoes, Who Cares, and I really enjoyed this album since the noises and it's just a beautiful noise, with Bennett's vocals being such a great lead vocalist and being one of the best vocalists from his time, from that great era of the music industry. And see, when you listen to this, it just makes you want to try to do some tap dancing to yourself, since that's the entire theme around this album. And it's just very nice to hear just nice, beautiful piano melodies with a lead vocalist that just adds to the greatness and makes it that little more special. Now let's move on to the next recommendation. Work of Art by Asake. This album, let's put it simply, it is a work of art, a brilliant piece of modern art. And one of the great things is that this album will put you onto a spiritual journey, I would say. I've really enjoyed listening to it, with its memorable tunes, with each beat being as memorable as the other, with every song telling an emotional tale that questions certain things within yourself and the album itself. Also, after listening to it, you feel good about yourself, and you feel like you've enjoyed yourself whilst listening to it. Also, in this album, you can't put your finger on what type of genre or what the album is, since it has multiple different parts of music in it. You can hear some E-pop, you can hear some Caribbean party music, and you can hear a subtle touch of R&B and rapping, of course. And also, even though, when they tell that artist is, I personally could not understand the language the album was in, but that breaks through the barrier of a language barrier, since you still understand the emotional elements throughout the album. And it just makes you want to sit back and relax whilst listening to it. One of my personal favourite songs in the album is Sunshine, since it just It's one of those songs that will lighten up your day, as the title would say. As again, this is a work of art, fine piece of quality of modern music. I would say. I would advise you take a moment out of your time, listen to one of these songs, or listen to the whole album, since this, I would put it, one of the personal favourites I've listened to in this week. And now let's go on to our next recommendation. Another great piece of music that I've listened to is That Feels Good by Jessie Ware. This album, I think, tries to tell a message, or has told a great message, to try to spread joy and peace and equality for all. And I think the artist used this album and her songs to spread that message. And I think they've done an excellent job, since certain songs talk about certain matters, such as yourself, how do you reflect yourself to others, and how do you spread your goodness around, and how you can change somebody's day with a simple good act, and that will change somebody in some way. Also, I think with the use of certain genres such as post disco and funk and pop in this album, it gives it that individualism that makes it unique to other albums that is out there. Plus, whilst listening to this album, I noticed that the first five tracks were a mixture of different elements from music, like some disco, some piano, and stuff like that. But when you get into later on in the album, it feels very influenced by the 70s and 70s vibes and that. And it just feels like a time capsule. And I think also it's very energizing listening to this album, since it just makes you want to do good and just spread goodness all around. And I also really enjoyed some of the songs that talk about these things, such as Free Yourself, Beautiful People, and Hello Love. I think these songs try to tell a great tale and a great message. And I think the artist done a great job. And also, I think with the use of the head of the musical production, Jessie Ford, who was the head of the keyboards, bass, guitar, and drums, I think with his musical background, that also made the album even better. Also, I just really enjoyed listening to this, since it was just, it's not often you hear an album that just spreads good. Like, you listen to it and you feel good afterwards, and you just feel happy after listening to it. And I think this is a great example of a joyful album. And if you are down the rough and you don't feel pretty good, I think this is a great pick me up, since it just is such a good album to listen to. Since it is good, it's not good like the music or the melodies, they are good, but the story it tries to tell is goodness, and how that affects you and your health and your coping mechanism. So let's move on to the next recommendation, and let's do that just now. Five Star by the Stray Kids. This album represents the 17th album from the band since their humble beginnings in 2017, I believe. And each time I listen to the band, their music gets better in quality and get better in sound, and the each beats being memorable, and each lyric from each of the members being as memorable as another. This album goes through also certain elements of the band's personal life, since it talks about their uniqueness, their confidence, and their aspirations for themselves, and also for the individuals who listen to their music and for their fan base. And this is the second album of this of 2023, since the previous album, The Sound, came out, which was I've listened to. I enjoyed that also, but the stories have the pacing in this and the last album, The Sound, is much different, since I believe what I remember of it, it was much slower and slower in pace compared to the other pieces of work. But this album brings it back to basics: quick pace, quick lyrics, quick beats, and quick tunes. And listen to each songs, you can tell that each member of the band put some work into some of each song and some emotional passions and stories that they wanted to tell. Also, a lot of the production team done excellent work with the remixing, the mixing, and the instruments that were played. And some of my favourite songs that I've listened to is Super Bowl and I can't remember the other ones, but even again, this shows you that in music there's no such thing as a language barrier, since you can still tell the emotional tales and the adventures that they try to tell for their music, even though it's from a different language. And I just think that is very unbelievable, just from how music does this. And I've just, I just really enjoyed the pacing of this. It makes you just feel energized. It just makes you feel great, and it just also takes you into their culture. Korean, it's K-pop. This album. It also tells you what like it shows you the difference between our culture, British culture, and their culture in Korea. That fast pace, quick maneuverability, being work, keep active, keep moving about, very energized, and movements. And I think that adds to the greatness of the Stray Cats and multiple K-pop bands. And I think it's very soon that K-pop will become the biggest part of music and be the most recognizable compared to the classic, memorable pieces of music such as jazz, rock and roll, and heavy metal. And I think this will come into its place in the next few years, and I'm just waiting to see what's next for the band and what's next for the K-pop industry. Now let's move on to our next recommendation. The Show by Niall Horan. And I just wanted to get out the way. I when I listen to Sun, like when I prepare for Music Monday, everything I listen to, I'm surprised that there's not that much stuff that I don't like. And for once, I'm going to get hated for this, but I didn't quite like this album. His previous album, Niall Horan's, his previous album in 2020, I think it's called Heartbreak Weather. I really enjoyed that. Very brilliant music, brilliant lead vocalist from Niall. But this album, I've got to say, was very bland and very boring, and it wasn't that much. How do you say it? Energy or something special about it. There wasn't something. There wasn't any genre in the album. There wasn't anything for me to like really and talk about. Of course, I enjoyed the main song of the album, which is Heaven, which everyone right now is loving. I enjoyed that. That was brilliant. I liked the story that tried to tell. But whilst listening to this album, every song just felt just bland and just a bit boring. And I know that you will hate me for this, but it just didn't feel exciting. I'm pretty sure, I'm not sure, but it just didn't, like, his last album I really enjoyed. Especially, I think that was during COVID, and when all that situation was getting, like, really thing me. It was nice listening to something different. But this just didn't feel, there's no emotional I felt with it. It just felt like he released it and then that's it. Of course, Heaven, I really enjoyed that. I didn't like this again, but I'm sorry if you don't agree with me. Please let me know or don't. But I just didn't like this album. Hopefully, it's not like this again. But uh, I just didn't like it. So I will quickly move on to the next recommendation right now. Another piece of music that I've listened to that I think was excellent is the extended player Pulse by Benson Boone. Enjoyed this album since I enjoyed the narrative and the story that it was trying to tell. And the story that I think it was trying to tell, what I got from it, was the emotional roller coaster that is comes with love and the different feelings that comes with it. There's confusion, love, of course, anger, dismay, and I think the artist perfectly, uh, with his vocals and his writing style, expressed that very greatly. And I think also what makes this very different from his other work is he was quoted as stating, Benson Boone, that from his previous work he felt like the songwriting and the recording and releasing of music, it felt forced and he needed to release something. But after releasing and recording this, he felt very happy and comfortable with it. He said with this it was because of the production team and the friends and the team that he worked with to creating this. He enjoyed the songwriting and he was very happy releasing that. And the cast of very brilliant production members who was a part of this, including bass guitarist Jason Cerrito and the drums from Jason Evergant, those two gentlemen I think added to the greatness of this album and made it that even more better. But I should give credit to the rest of the production that made it very easy and very great for us, the listeners, to get an understanding of what the extended player was trying to tell us and what the story and what was the narrative of the album. Also, some of my favourite songs that I enjoyed from this was Coffee Cup, which is the first song you hear, and I think the last one, A Little Runaway. I really enjoyed those two. So now let's go on to our final and last recommendation. Gut Feeling by Lozeak. I really enjoyed this extended play. I really love it because it's against the norm of what's been released in the last year or so. Since it's really gives off a rebellion against all the music, all the things that you should or shouldn't do. And also, I really enjoyed the emotional passion that went into it, that you can tell that throughout the vocals and the creating of the album. I found out that the title came from the for every song that you listen to, you get a different gut feeling that it's supposed to represent, and I think the artist done that very greatly, since it does give off a gut feeling every time you listen to a different song from this uh, release of the artist, and it turns out that this represents a hard time for the artist since supposedly they went through a very hard heartbreak or breakup during the release of this, and that added to the songwriting and the emotional elements to this release. And this was a long time coming from the artist. It's been 3 years since she started writing this, and it took her to now to release it. Since I think that added to the greatness of the album. Since if something's been in station or been waiting for some time, it's going to be great. Since a lot of time, a lot of passions went into it. Some of my favourite songs, or one particular song that I really enjoyed about this, is Drag Me to Hell, that I really enjoyed because it just, I can't describe what type of music it is, but it gives off a punk rock and just angry metal type music. But I really enjoyed the album. I enjoyed the artist's input into it and the production team that was a part of it. I also enjoyed it. You can tell that the artist went through a breakup during this, since most of the songs is about heart loss and about like the loss of a loved one or a heartbreak. And I think you can tell that. And that is it for the week for the recommendations. Just go to the last remaining part of the Music Monday, and that is, let me go on to that. And that is favourite album cover of the week. That is, throughout what I've listened to, I've picked out my favourite album cover from the music that I've listened to, and what is eye-catching to me, of what I thought, oh, that looked good. And for me personally, the best album cover is Gut Feeling by Lozeak, since it depicts or shows the artist with some part of her torso, with her tattooing that title album, and all the names of the songs tattooed all around her, which I found out she actually done, since this is her first major release. And I think that just shows you the passion that some artists will go to promote their work, and I think that adds to the specialness to this album. And that's what grabbed my attention while I was looking through my music streaming services. I saw that album and I was like, that looks good, so I'll give that a try. And that's what caught my attention. Now, that we had multiple selections from That Feels Good, that had a good album cover, and I would say Work of Art was good too. But I have to say, Gut Feeling had a great album cover. But this is the final part of the Music Monday, and that is the song of the week. This is a song that I've listened to that I've really enjoyed, and that is "The Grass Won't Pay No Mind" by the King himself, Elvis Presley, the greatest of them all, I would say. And I enjoyed that song since it shows a great melody from the King himself, and it just is one of his great hits from. It's an underrated hit, I think, from all his work that not so many people pay attention to. But I really enjoyed it. I loved the lyrics and the vocals from the King himself, and that's it for Music Monday. Please remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I thank you for taking the time out of your valuable time to listen to this. It means a lot. Hopefully, I will do this for the further future. And I see you soon. Enjoy. Keep on listening to your tunes. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.